Okay, coming to you live. We have an urgent update for you tonight. A lot of stuff is going on, as you learned throughout the course of the week. We've got a shifting narrative, a shifting dynamic, and a shifting power structure that is underway all over the planet. There are so many things happening at this point, so much information, intel coming out. Some of the guys coming in, of course, have their military contacts. I've got two separate ones that uh, typically line up this time, in this point in time, in this battle. They're not. I see shifting viewpoints from one side and the other side. The same thing happens. I think more than anything else, what's happening in this battle for Earth and the battle for humanity is that none of us really know exactly what's going on at any given time and why it's going on. There's so many reasons why actions are being played out militarily around the world, specifically focused on Iran right now. Why are we there? What's happening? Are we taking down the global cabal machine, or which we are worldwide? Are we in there because there are servers in there that they need to scoop up that have a lot of bad shit on them, i.e., extensive Epstein stuff? Is it because the stargates and the portals in Iran throughout the Middle East? There's a vast array of reasons why a lot of this stuff is happening. But if you look at the history of Iran, you go back to the prime minister they had back in the 50s. He was loved, adored, fought for women's rights. And of course, he was making the country great again. How did he do that? Because the British went in there in the early part of the 20th century, staked their claim on the oil there, and then were making a massive fortune while the Iranians, Persians were living in third world country conditions until the prime minister came in the 50s and he said, you know what, no more of this bullshit, you're out. They took over the oil industry. And of course, now the standard of living came up. What does the CIA do? They bring in the guy who looks like they're going to bring back, who apparently is going to take over. I don't know how this is going to play out or why, but they bring the Shah in. And of course, he wasn't as useful, I guess, in the future as a puppet after they put him in there. Now he's overthrown, removed, and they bring in a theocracy. This is all clowns in America stuff, folks. It's chessboard. It's dirty. It's organic. It's ever changing. It breathes nothing but bad breath. And this is what the world has been spinning on this axis for literally 50 to 70 years. And I believe the shit is coming to an end. I think there's a lot of reasons that. Now, remember, people can hammer away at Donald Trump. Why is he doing this? Why is he saying that? Why Netanyahu? Why fighting on behalf of Israel, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'm going to say this. You got to remember, Trump's not calling the shots. This is a military operation with brilliant minds militarily and historically, with the historical empirical data, all of it. These guys have been planning this thing for a very long time. This Leviathan has been not only breathing, it's been growing for hundreds or even a couple thousand years. There's a lot to get done here. I don't even know from day to day what I really think about all this. Where is the true axis of this thing? That's why we're going to hash this out tonight with the boys that are coming in. Mike Jaco, of course, 24-year Navy SEAL, CIA operations. You have former Marine here, law enforcement, high-level investigator, decorated as a law enforcement officer, Alpha Warrior, decorated by the FBI as a law enforcement officer, took on the criminal, corrupt FBI and said, you know what? It ain't going to happen. And he beat their asses every step of the way in court. This isn't the good FBI guys. These are the criminals that tried to take this guy out. They forked with the wrong hombre. That's what happened to them. And he put them over his knee, pulled their diapers down, beat their asses, and sent them packing. And now they're going to pay him big, big, big money for trying to mess with the wrong warrior. So that's great, Alpha. I'm happy that worked out that way. Josh Reed will be in here in a little bit. Had some wires crossed on time. He's coming in. Our encyclopedia will be here probably more toward the top of the hour. But this is going to be an interesting conversation. So I'm gonna have Alpha Warrior here, whose mother I have a crush on. I shouldn't have put that out there for the whole world, but I'm just going to say it. Anyways, hello, Mrs. Luna. Much love to you. She gave birth, and the father gave birth to a solid warrior that could have been put in prison for a long time, but he would not back down on the J6 stuff. So Alpha, you have made massive waves in this movement since we met, actually. Your channel, the people follow you, hundreds of thousands follow you on Twitter. You've been digging all the bones up in this thing in the last 6 years and showing the world what the truth is. Are you a little confused from time to time about what's really happening in this battle, beginning with Iran, Israel's involvement, all this stuff that's emerging? Are you getting conflicting information at times, or is it just me?
At times, how about every day?
Good. Thank you.
I'll wake up in the morning and be like, okay, I got the gist of this going on, and the more I try to get into the weeds of how this unfolds, I'm like, okay, I here's the picture, and then boom, some intel comes in, and you're just like, wait, well, I just spent 6 hours going through this, and if you're telling me this, we're going a completely different direction.
Hmm.
And and you're talking, these are reliable sources, and then you'll get another source who's a reliable source that brings you right back to this. So you're just like, okay, these people have been consistently right, and now they have opposing information. What the heck is going on here? Now, what that tells me, and we've talked about this before, online and offline, is there are also strategic leak operations, you know, and not just leak operations to identify infiltrators, but because they are trying to confuse the enemy. We are getting to that point where the bad guys know what's coming, and they're paying
Hmm.
attention to every podcast. They're reading every Substack. They got their push pin board of people that they're monitoring too. And
Hmm.
so there's times where they're going to use us, as that tool of misdirection. And I don't like that, but it's also what's more important, and the mission's what's more important. And I think that's what the audience has to understand. This is a very fluid operation that's unfolding. And the closer we get to all the things that we want, the more dangerous and the more confusing that's going to be. So here's the most important thing that I can say for the audience to hear right now is, if you want us to do the right thing, the only thing that we need to do is just be honest. If you try to think too far into it, as in, okay, well, if they're doing this and they're saying this and Trump's doing this, and you're 7 or 8 steps into the problem, you're like, okay, well, if this is what they want, then this is how I feel. Well, you're just adding more to the fog of war. What's going on? We just have to respond. Here's what Trump's doing. Here's what it looks like on the surface, and here's how I feel about it. And I'm going to communicate that, because they've already accounted for that. The court of public opinion, it's something they may even want. They may want pushback on certain things. And now we have to navigate that carefully, because you see all the people flipping on President Trump right now. How many people that are trying to subvert the support that he has? So, right now we're all kind of we have to be very finesse with how we do things. And there's just no room to be sloppy right now.
True, and the fact is we're trying to discern exactly what's happening. We've been processing this information for longer than I'd like to even care to admit, and not yet have this thing completed, wrapped up. But the realities are that there's a number of things that jump as we're watching this emerge. Um, if we're looking at the entire intelligence operation for a little over 3 years, there are a number of things in there that we always have to remember. And when we keep coming back to this, I've gotten this from I've gotten some serious pushback from Overwatch out of Australia. He's high level SAS operator there. He's personal friends with Putin. He's a high level martial arts guy. He's rolled on the mat with him and Seagal and other people. Extremely educated, highly educated, a former magistrate, law enforcement, protecting cabal families, Illuminati families, kids, and all that. He's given me a lot of information over the years. He has hammered away on Israel, hammered me for like 2 years. You need to start telling people the truth, and hammering me. And I never, I don't discount anything he says, because what's emerging now is exactly what he was saying 2 years ago. People are getting the insight on Israel. So, and this isn't the Israeli people. We're with you. You have been oppressed by the Khazarian mobsters, the same clowns run in D.C., the crime syndicate. But there's a lot of things we were bullshitted about our history in this country, and you have been too, and all you other people around the world, you've been bullshitted about your history. You've all been lied to. We need to unify as a population on a planet against the power structure. I don't care who's in power, what level of government. I don't trust them. I trust Donald Trump. I trust the militaries around the world. I trust the people that have capitulated and are playing out their role in this whole thing. But the point that I want to make here, Alpha, is that this is coming from high level SEAL operator, SEAL commander, working, in a different capacity as non active duty, but he's seen the shit all over the world. He still is. He's I think he might be 70 at this point, and he's out there still. He's brought back in at the behest of Trump to get stuff done. But here's one thing that came at me Wednesday. So Iran is the great aggressor. Yes, really? Iran versus Israel for how many decades? Only 2024 now protecting itself from U.S. aggression while being manipulated by England et al. Come on. And then here is a meme, and I'm going to see if there's any way that I can get this over to. I'm gonna pull this text out and send this over if I can. Send it to Lisa, because when you see this, this is as telling as anything about the truth of what's really been going on. And I'm pointing toward the Khazarian mobsters here more than anything else. Give me a sec. How can I find this thing? Gosh darn it. Well, okay, yeah, I guess I could, couldn't I? Let me. I don't want to. I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up my source here in text. I'm just going to see if it's possible I can do exactly what you said. But the reality that I'm seeing here over the course of time is these kind of truths. Okay, let me see how I'm going to figure out how on this platform I can screen share here. At least I can't remember. Where do I? Okay, see the gear. Okay, I see that. Share screen and live. Oh, where are you? Stream. I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a website. I'm looking for a graphic. Why am I not seeing it here? Well, I've got it now. I'm just going to read through this, folks. I'm going to read through this really quickly. So they do a comparison side by side with Iran and the USA. Okay, Iran, USA. Countries attacked by bombing, sabotage, or attempted government overthrow since World War II. I'm not going to name the dates, but we'll start with Iran. Okay, on the left column, here's how many times. Iran, Israel, 2024. Now listen to this, USA, which means the Khazarian mobsters, not you and I, not our great soldiers. The USA, starting in 45 and 46, and I just won't give the years from here. China, Syria, Korea, China, Iran, Guatemala, Tibet, Indonesia, Cuba, Democratic Republic of Congo, Iraq, Dominican Republic again, Vietnam, Brazil, Belgium, Congo, Guatemala, Laos, Dominican Republic again, Peru, Greece, Guatemala again, Cambodia, Chile, Argentina. We're hitting 1980 now, Turkey, Poland, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Cambodia, Angola, Lebanon, Grenada, Philippines, Libya, Iran, Libya, Panama, Iraq, Kuwait, Somalia, Iraq, Bosnia, Iran, Sudan, Afghanistan, Yugoslavia, Serbia, Afghanistan again, Iraq, Somalia, Iran, present, Libya. Iran from 2005 to present. We've been at it for that long, folks. 20 years we've been hitting these guys. And then Libya. Now, you tell me who the aggressor really is here. And is it the United States? Yeah, but on behest of who? The killers in D.C., the political class, the CIA-controlled, the Israeli Mossad-controlled clowns in D.C. have been at this for a long, long time. So I wanted to put that in context so you understand what I was being told here. Here's what goes. When your country is the military arm of the globalists, that's what it shows with that graphic. And then it says, I can't really say all of it here, quote it, because it's somewhat offensive to a certain nation's people. But let's just say effing whatever, they talk about Israel. They got caught sending, and this guy's got his contacts inside special operations ships right now over there. They got caught sending missiles into the port of Dubai. It wasn't Iran. I bet nothing will be said by Trump et al., including media. Does the direction from which missiles count as evidence? Meaning, which direction did these missiles that came in and started hitting bases or whatever, were they coming from the direction of Iran or Israel? Now, you got to remember, Israel's sunken ships in our Navy to get us into wars in the past. If we only turned our batteries in their direction, then it goes on, get this, the 3 downed F-15s, again, saying it was Israel. And he says here, I mentioned it to the boss's reply. He says this, we are on it. This is the takedown of 3 F-15s by Israel. Again, to provoke the flame. True or not, I'm just reporting what I'm getting. We're on it. The Navy has had enough of this BS, but fuck, The commanders are stonewalled / shut down. Big orders. Do not retaliate. The sites the missiles came from are still active. Like I told you earlier, the morale is low. Thus, the B-52 show to boost it. They had a B-50, or not a B-52, a B-2 bomber, a stealth bomber, come over a Navy ship to fire everybody up. Because we all do that. Yeah, kick ass. Because the morale's so low. He says, otherwise, the kids know what's going on. Talked about the Liberty. This is when I mentioned the Liberty. This is what was said. Yeah, same shit. One of the Lincoln's destroyers, I forget which one, downed 2 missiles coming from the opposite direction, not from Iran. Imagine being hit by your own missiles, munitions. We sell all this stuff to Israel. Imagine being hit by your own munitions. This shit has to stop, but the upper echelon has no balls. What the fuck do they have on our politicians? Very consistently compromised. Can't just be the money. The number of missiles from Israel to create chaos, false flags is ridiculous, and nothing's being said. What the fuck? Yeah, I know. Who runs the media? Listen to how the Rothschilds like to be. So that to me was a very damning assessment, and I don't doubt any of it. I don't know if it's true. I can't verify. I'm not there. All I can say is there is a reason why the Q operation said only one time, 5,000 plus drops. 5,000. And it was kind of on its own. It said, we are saving Israel for last. There's a reason why not mentioned a single time here. Now, what do you think of all this, Alpha?
So the ultimate question comes down to, do I trust the United States government? Hell no. Do I trust the United States intelligence apparatus? Hell no. As a whole, being very generalized. Do I trust President Trump? 100%. Everything that is happening, is happening, and is going to happen only works with President Trump as president.
Only person.
Only way that works. So if President Trump was to come out right now and say, hey, some of these missiles being fired at our boys are coming at the direction of Israel, through their proxies, we have the intelligence to support that. Trump would be impeached before the weekend is over.
Yep. They control all the politicians. They control them all. They would.
Yep. He is gone. So he can't come out and say that because the narrative warfare would destroy him. There is a large population of the Christian Zionists that just don't understand what's happening. So Trump has to fight this war on multiple fronts. He knows what controls the IRGC. This is part of that globalist elite. So he has to remove the threat, not get himself impeached, not destroy the relationships with all the countries in the Middle East. And to show that the reason I am so confident, because a lot of people say, oh, it's cult mentality, oh, it's blind trust. No, it's not. If you look at Trump, from everything that he's done, not even counting the first administration, just from January of 2025 to now, he came out, labeled the cartel as domestic terrorists. And then all of a sudden, months later, we're taking out the cartels with our Department of War. He created these relationships with MBS in Saudi Arabia. He's doing these visits to Qatar. He's doing these weapons packages, these packages with these planes to different countries in the Middle East. He was setting these countries up to be able to fight something where if America started to pull away, these countries would now be like, it's our turn to step in and make sure that there's stabilization here. So there's a huge dynamic because what's going on in Iran, and I'm sure Joshua will talk about this at length as well, is not necessarily just about Iran and Israel. There is a lot of these proxy battles are setting up for a big battle we are going to have with China, that the CCP, like that is going to come. And so what we see here, and that has to go with energy and political actually meant, they did an article about 2 days ago. Now I'll grab that article for you so you guys can have it for your audience, where they acknowledge this, how what's going on with Iran is affecting China. And we talked about that, over the last couple months on the shows with you guys as well, and Venezuela. But to bring it to Iran and these missiles, let me just break it down from the mentality of a combat veteran, somebody that's out in war. Once you show up, it's different. The objectives are different. We see what CNN and Fox and pundits are reporting. Here's the objectives that Trump and the Secretary of War are describing. That's not what matters to the guys on the Navy ship. That's not what matters to the special forces guys that are in Iran. They'll never acknowledge it. We have special forces in Iran. The only
Absolutely.
the only thing that matters to those guys is how do I get the guy next to me home with me?
Get the job done and get out and get everybody out safely.
Politics don't matter, geopolitical positions don't matter. It's how do I go in, do what I was tasked with doing, and get out with all my guys. That's all that matters. And so when you're on the ground, in these combat zones, you don't get the big picture like everybody else. You're very limited in scope. Like as crazy as this may sound, our troops may have more specific information to their specific mission, way more than we will.
Mhm.
But on a large scale, the operation, we're more aware of what's going on than they are. That's the wild part, and I'm telling you, that's the apps. Unless things have changed dramatically in the last 23 years, and maybe they have, But even talking with some of my guys that still serve, that really hasn't happened, and so I can see the frustration of people saying, why isn't Trump doing this or why isn't he exposing this? And I've been sharing this a lot. So for those that have been following me, this will sound like a rerun, but this is very important for people to grasp. The globalist deep state is not afraid of arrest. I'm going to repeat that. The deep state is not afraid of arrest. You can arrest Hillary, they got 1,000 replacements. You can arrest Obama, 1,000 replacements. They're not afraid of podcasts. They're not afraid of Substacks. They're not, none of those things they're afraid of. And I want the arrest and we will get the arrest. There's only one thing that the deep state fears, and that's the exposure of how the mechanism operates. And what Trump has been doing from his first administration, and especially from January to now, is he's showing us how that mechanism operates. This is the thing they fear. This is why they are trying to kill that man. And what do I mean by that? Here's a perfect example. We've seen all the pushback. Well, if Trump knew that the other tariff laws were better, why didn't he just start with those? Because by using these, he showed the establishment, he exposed who would push back, he
Yeah.
exposed how the Supreme Court would rule. He showed all of us like these things are working for our country. They're bringing in revenue. He's
Mhm.
giving our troops bonuses. Why are you guys not on board with this? We're like, hey. And then once we got exposed to how that mechanism operated, he says, "Don't worry, we got this." And he's been doing that with everything. And why is that important? Because at the end of this, we're going to get the arrest. Zero doubts that that's coming down the pipeline. It may not be all the ones we want. It may not be the charges that we want, but these people are going to be removed from the game board forever. It's going to happen. But the most important part is when we get to that point, we're all going to recognize this is how the system works. This is how they got their power. This is how they deployed their power, foreign, domestically. And then as we get our sovereignty back, we'll be in a position we'll never allow that to happen again. That is the single greatest fear of the deep state, because their contingency plan is if we lose now, we have enough seeds embedded throughout the world that in the next 100 years, we'll get to finish this again. They think long term. We think in terms of our own lifespan.
Yep.
They don't. They're thinking global takeover forever. That's their objective. But
And on
they
the way out the door, and on the way, even if they don't here to complete the mission, that's not important to them. Us, yes, them. They want to, as they're on their way out the door, they'll pull off one more murder, one more Samson option hit, one more to wipe out as many as they can because they're delivering for ball, and they believe they're going to be rewarded, on the other side coming back again. I want to throw something in here because Mike Jaco, folks, joined us here, and I want to just give Mike a real brief here. So obviously, always loaded for bear because these guys have great intel coming from multiple locations as well. Mike, I want to give you a 20-second dissertation on what we kicked off with. Information I'm getting from one of my intel sources, and this is an intel source, is that we were looking at the possibility Iran has launched a number of these missiles, and it wasn't, or not Iran, but Israel's launched a number of these missiles. It's coming from their direction, not from Iran. 3 F-15 shot down. This is a high-level SEAL commander who's about 70 years old now, who's been brought back by Trump first term to do stuff, and he's still active. And this is one of I'm getting a second party because won't talk directly to me, but but three F-15s down, and they said that flyby with the B-2 bomber, the stealth bomber across the Navy ship, was to try to boost that morale, because they said the guys know what's going on. The commanders are pissed. They get it. That this shit's happening, just like Israel sunk one of our ships in the past to get us into a war. They got everything locked down. We can't learn shit because they blame it on somebody else, because they're using the United States and our military to do what they want done all over the world. And so I talked about that. So we're trying to figure out what the possibilities are. We believe in Trump. We believe in the military, and the other militaries doing their job. But there's a landmine field that Trump has to navigate politically in so many ways. But here's something I want to throw out there. This is the conversely. Here's another viewpoint from the same source, because he sees things differently day by day depending on information he gets. And like me, he gets pissed, and you can tell when he's pissed. But here's what came in. It's converse to the other information. Said this. Perhaps Trump and team are taking out British/central bankster control in the Middle East and putting a stop to their planned relocation of power nodes from DC, London, Switzerland to Shanghai, Kazakhstan, and their proxies in the Middle East like Qatar and Iran. Interesting that he mentioned taking down the banking cabal, as I'm reading about Ripple becoming the new banking system, potentially replacing SWIFT, and that the Kraken, a crypto exchange, allegedly has access to the Fed window. I almost mentioned his name. Thinks he figured out why Trump has surrounded himself with so many Zionist warmongering traitors. It's to keep close surveillance of all their communications and plans. Makes sense. In my opinion, he may have gathered evidence of their treasonous/seditious activity. So was it all one big trap? Could be. And the Space Force building destroyed in Qatar, that may be the facility where the Brits, who is the real enemy, had a control center for the tech, one we made for them. Now they don't have it. So who has the only control center now? The U.S. And you've probably seen the Promethean group action. Those ladies, man, they are loaded with 50 years of history of this. All this is the British bullshit. All these countries are proxy, truly, of Britain, of all of it. And what Trump is doing is orchestrating the diaper removal and ass beating of the British Empire, and setting the whole world free. Tell me, that doesn't seem like an accurate assessment here, Mike. The diapers included.
Yeah, it's definitely. They don't have diapers. They're just
dirty,
just pooping everywhere, and everybody's seeing it now. So one of those things, is, of course, is straight up from Moose, the London, banking system, the Lloyd's of London. They're not going to do anymore. They're the ones for years set themselves up to be the ones that did the insurance for the banking system, or for the moving ships and so forth. So if something happened to a ship, Lloyd's of London would cover you. They pulled out. So this is definitely a British thing. Of course, Britain also said, no, you can't use our base in Diego Garcia or other bases to launch from. And we have, Starmer doing an apology tour where he's going to all the Muslim mosques and saying that we had nothing to do with this strike. So it's absolutely Britain is being exposed. I'm like, let's just, storm the city of London and just take this down right now. But I guess Trump's going to do it his way, which is always the best way, I've learned. But that's me. I'm just let's just go take care of this thing, on a knuckle dragging level. But and that does work. But I think the takedown of the system and the way they're exposing everything is going to be far more reaching. It goes deeper and will be more palatable for everybody in the long run. So yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, we can look at all the wars that have happened. They use Israel as a proxy to basically, do their evil, just like they use China and have used China as a proxy to do their evil. You look at all the guys that went to, Korean War, Vietnam War, Afghanistan, tons of drugs, drug trafficking. Who was behind all that? China. So it is, all being exposed. And who controls China? Britain. So who did the Opium Wars? Britain. against China, and now they're using China to do their dirty work for them again. So Trump is like squeezing China at the same time, Cuba at the same time, Mexico at the same time. He's already dealt with Venezuela, and we're going to probably see Brazil get dealt with as well at some point. So there's a lot of work that's going on simultaneously. So it's fantastic.
It is, and I think it's exciting. We see this because so many people are so pissed. This should have been done. We want this over with. Just want to, and like Sheila Holmes said to me, and I never forgot it. I said it many times. This isn't about getting it done. It's about getting it right. We have one chance, only one forever to do it right. I never realized, Mike, how big this Leviathan is. Even myself, I never even dreamed or imagined how big this thing is. But you have got to take it down as he has been, piece by piece, according to Promethean Action, piece by piece. He's been dismembering this thing for 1 year. And obviously now this sucker is going to fight back. So I would just say brace for impact, be ready. Alpha.
Let me add to what Alpha said about long term, because that's fantastic what he said. They do think long term. You look at Albert Pike, who 200 years ago predicted World War I, World War II, and World War III. And he predicted them exactly as they have happened. World War III, he predicted, would be against the Zionists and the Muslims, and they would destroy each other, and the whole world would get sucked into it and be destroyed as well. So they have these long-term plans. We are starting to become aware of them, but we need to move on their plans very rapidly now. We don't get sucked into a third world war, which I don't see happening. I think there's a bigger picture that's going on. So yeah, Alpha, fantastic, good job.
No, absolutely. You guys remember the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe?
We've all seen it 100 times, right? Yeah,
100%, right. And in towards the end of the movie, in that final fight scene between him and the bad Caesar, right? The Caesar comes in there and he stabs Maximus in the rib cage before they go into the fight, right? So to weaken him. Now that was the bad guy doing it, so we were all pissed, right? Like, that's not even a fair fight. Well, our military, we've never been designed and said we're going to go fight fair. No, you bring a knife, we're going to bring rifles. You bring rifles, we're going to bring tanks. You bring tanks, we're going to bring jets. You bring jets, then we're going to make you go boom. And like we're not here for a fair fight. We're here to win. And if you look at what Trump's strategically been doing all around the world, Mike, you talked about it. Venezuela, Ecuador, we called that one, right? The stuff in Mexico, what's going on in Iran. This is Trump doing those jabs to the deep state under the vest. He knows they want to bring us to an ultimate fight. And what he's doing, he's weakening all the different variables that they had planned. So this way, when they're finally, because they're going to be cornered and they're not going to surrender and they're going to say it's time to do it, they're not going to have the effect that they want. One, because the same way they've infiltrated us, we have absolutely infiltrated them. Are there people in Trump's circle that we know are part of that deep state? Yes. But some of those people are also people that we feel that way about them because they were used to infiltrate the deep state. It's hard to gauge who's who. So where I've positioned myself, based off the information I get from people is, okay, there's the way I felt about certain people, but now let me measure their actions. And one of the easiest ones for us to read on this has been Marco Rubio. Not a fan of that guy.
Me either.
At all. But as Secretary of State is like, what the heck? This dude is
leverage.
He's taking names. So then you got to pause and be like, okay, so if I believe that about him, maybe the bad guys believe that about him. So did Trump say, hey, you can spend the rest of your life in a gulag, or you're going to come, you're going to get along, you're going to play by our rules now? Definitely a possibility. Or was he never bad and he infiltrated the deep state from the very beginning, and now we have to go through the growing pains of doing a reassessment of him? Like, this is the propaganda 5G warfare that's at play right now. But the biggest thing for people to recognize is pay attention to what Trump says, but put more weight on the moves that he's doing, because his moves talk.
Yeah, it's like your actions speak so loudly, I can hardly hear what you're saying. Mike, you get a kick out of this. I don't know if you might have interviewed this lady before, but I released it last week, I believe, Dr. Judith Very Baker. Lee Harvey Oswald's lover, when he was taken out. And she's a prodigy. She's like she has 160 IQ, 15 years old, a DOD contractor, high level stuff like intelligence stuff. And that's how she met him. What I learned through that, if it's all true, and I have no doubt that it is based on everything we've known about the JFK assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald was an American patriot and a massive hero. This guy was a double agent, Marine Corps sniper. In the intelligence world, he's a double agent. Why was he in Moscow, quote unquote, defected for 3 years? Because he had to gain the trust of the Castro regime, that they had somebody on the inside of the United States leading the charge, pro Castro. And she said, think about it, Scott. And she was with him for these years. She said, think about it. Communism basically was outlawed right back in the 50s. Now, if he defects and lands back on in a U.S. airport, they're gonna pick him up, right? They're gonna arrest him. She said, you think they'd leave him out in the open in Louisiana, in New Orleans, handing out pro-Castro flyers out in the middle of the street? They would have arrested him. She said he actually saved JFK's life 3 weeks prior to him being assassinated, because he had gotten word through his channels. They had an operation. They were taking out Kennedy. I think it might have been Chicago weeks before that. And he was able to get through to their channels and get that information to them. And they changed the schedule or change it. So he basically saved his life. And she also said that he said to her a few weeks before, she's written a couple books. One's called Me and Lee, and there's two other ones, but she's she's in her 80s, very young, 83 maybe. But she was an incredible interview. You got to have this interview, incredible interview. And I've got to do more with her, because there's a whole lot of shit back there that we never knew. But think about this. We are how many years deep into this, and Lee Harvey Oswald is a hated figure worldwide for decades. And then you find out this information. And she said he had told her, and again, it was a couple weeks before, that he felt something was off, and they were probably going to try to take him out. So that corroborates everything you just said, Alpha. We have no real idea, not what's necessarily going on, but really what we're dealing with here with this machine of deception and murder and everything. So I think it's the most intriguing, exciting time in this entire war right now, because what we're seeing is a culmination of every vector coming from every direction at this point in space in time for ultimate impact. And I think we are now on the verge of this ultimate impact.
One of the things that people have to consider is, to go back to talking about like Hillary and the Obamas, right? Like, we know these people are dark. We know that there's a place down in hell that has their reserve table. Like, these people are that evil. But we also got to understand they're not the top of the totem pole in this evil cabal. Now, you have to ask yourself, well, how do we identify those people? If we know at the mafia level and the cartel level that the main bosses on there don't connect themselves through money, don't connect themselves through email, they don't leave a digital footprint. Like, these people are that good, like the top echelons, then how do you catch them? There's only one way, folks. You have to have a human person that points them out. That's who I talk to. And that human person is only going to be at the very top. There's no one at the bottom that's going to know that. How do we know that that's happening? Here was a huge, huge one that we all just witnessed this past week. Bill Clinton. I just want to make sure that everybody understands Trump ain't got nothing to do with Epstein. He's a good guy. We never talked about. Why in the world would Bill Clinton feel compelled to have to deliver that message when his bacon is on the grill right there? Wow. They are hammering him. They are hammering his wife. They are trying to extract all this. The dude's shaking while he's holding his water. The dude is in the worst position he's ever found himself in publicly. And in all that chaos, he wants to make sure we all know, hey, Trump's good, folks. That wasn't to clear Trump's name. Trump has enough evidence. That was the signal to the top echelon of the cabal. We're talking. They know who you are.
If we find out that Epstein, remember, he was arrested initially and then put on, limited. You go to the jail on the weekends in Florida, and the rest of the week is all up to you. Was he turned in, and was he starting to collect information? That's what I think.
Hmm.
So that could be something that really is, as things start to get disclosed, that could be one of the things we find out. So I said right from the beginning, when they found him in his cell, supposedly committed suicide, I was like, that's not even him. So he's basically on a program that's basically he's talking. So that's I think some of the things that we're going to start to see. We 80 this person is 80 in their 80s is basically telling us, 50 plus years ago when JFK was assassinated, it was all bullshit. Lee Harvey Oswald he's a hero, and I've had people on that talked about and said that he was a patsy. He never pulled a trigger. I pulled the trigger, and this person pulled the trigger, and we're the ones that blew his head up. I've had those people on my show, and they said that not only did we, take him out, but we're assassins, and we took all kinds of people out. Anyone that got in the way about the JFK and started to talk, we took them out too. So there's all these things that I've had these shows. How many people have seen them? Not many. They just don't want to believe. So at what point will people go, okay, this is the truth, and now we're seeing it. Everybody's like, when we're going to have the EBS? We've been having the EBS for years now. So come on, get a program. We're having it right now.
Well, to that point, Mike, is trust me, 2019 is that wasn't that long ago. I have not been awake as there's people in the vast majority of the audience has been awake way longer than I have. So trust me, I get it with these conversations. Is like, what are you're telling me Oswald is a good guy? Like, discernment is hard. It's hard because the way we've been propagandized. So this is what I would challenge people to as a social experiment to kind of gauge where you're at, to make understanding these difficult conversations a little bit easier. Imagine us 20 years from now, 30 years from now, where we don't win. What do you think the stories about Trump would look like?
Hitler, the worse than Hitler. They
What
tried.
the kids in elementary school 30 years from now would be like, the guy was a tyrant. He was evil. He was trying to destroy America.
Mm-hmm.
So if we know that establishment, that cabal has been in charge the last couple of decades,
yeah,
how can we think any person that they told us is bad is really bad?
Yeah, anybody that let's just say the royal families, the Vatican, Washington D.C., anybody that they say is bad, that's now completely questionable. It's like, oh, they must be the good guys. Whoever they say is good are the real bad guys. Talk about brilliant planning. You have to be an expert in so many things, specifically human psychology, because and obviously they've had many operations all over the world to build the apparatus with which to carry that out. The education system being the pinnacle of all of it. And had Sherry on again, Mike, and with her again, what she lived through, what she now, how she sees the picture of education, and what she's now looking to deploy. Which I know you're going to get behind that, and so am I. But they took us. I've covered this a number of times about Horace Mann was the one who studied the Prussian education system, figure out how do you go from this to kicking Napoleon's ass. And it goes back to Johann Fichte, the philosopher. You want to build a society, you build it from the ground up. So therefore, when the children are at a certain age, the only will that they have is the will that you will upon them. They applied that on Johann Fichte's philosophy. 20 years later, they're kicking Napoleon's ass. Why? Because they're not thinking about what's going on back home. Am I losing my farm? This or that? They have an automated thinking. Transition to the Industrial Revolution, which obviously served us. A noise goes off. Oh my God, I got to go get dressed and I got to eat my breakfast and I got to go to this place where a whistle blows and I got to go punch. And then I go do my shit for 2 hours and another whistle goes off. Oh, I guess I got to pee. The pee spray time went off. I did that when I was a kid in school. We're like working jobs after school. And then again, another bell goes off. Oh, it's lunchtime. Another bell. Get the hell out of here. Go home. You go home. And it's this automated thinking. Automated, right? No creativity. And that's what the whole education system is now. It's indoctrinating us to be automatons and robots. Go do that. Do you ever hire somebody and hey, go pick up that trash, right? And they're like, where? That's a piece of trash. It's the only piece of crumpled up paper anywhere in the whole parking lot. That's called trash. And then they go pick it up. Okay. And then they stand there looking at you. And you're like, what the hell? What do I do with it? Throw it in a trash can. Oh, and then they walk over. That type of thinking is what I see every day in the world. When I hire people to do certain things, it baffles me. Like, do I really have to say, okay, now go throw it in the trash? That's what they bred in us or build in our minds, as opposed to creativity, critical thinking, analyze. When she said that to me, Dr. Judith said that to me, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, basically communism is outlawed, yet he's a defector and lands back in from Moscow to here. Why did they arrest him? What's he doing on the street? Right? We just don't think of these things. It should be obvious because that's how they built the world, to just go along with everything, right? And that's going to be a huge thing to overcome. That's half our battle, because not only do this cabal have to be fought and defeated, so do the people in our own land. The automatons that are running around protesting and doing all the crazy shit they're doing. So you look at the expertise they've got. Human psychology is just the tip of the iceberg. Everything else below that, honestly, I'm surprised we've gotten this far in the last 6 years.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't take very long for the disinformation to come through and start to destroy someone's character. Look at Kristi Noem. She, supposedly was released because she, did an ad campaign and Trump was not aware of it. That's the story, right? So I've heard from other people that, Jan Halper Hayes came out and said that the reason why Trump released her was because she arrested someone in Congress. And that just went over the top, and he had to shut that down real quick. So, I mean, what is that real or is that, whatever? But today all the GOP is coming out and destroying Kristi Noem today. So maybe that's true. So when, look at all the stuff she did. I thought she did a fantastic job.
So did I.
I saw that she was in, Congress, and she was having these, they were questioning her, and there was they're gonna try and ding her up, but she's like bulletproof. And then and then Trump moved her into something else and put in somebody else in. So what really happened there? Was that the case? Did she basically go off and arrest somebody like Jan Halper Hayes says in Congress? So I guess I have that video waiting for me. So I'll go research that, because I'm in show to show. I haven't had time to do all that, but that's something that someone, shared with me. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to put out disinformation about that. I don't know that for sure. But think about that. Why would they come in and destroy her character this quickly? And it just seems a little bit over the top. So like we've talked about, they'll change history, and they can change history in a day.
About a week ago, maybe a little bit longer, give or take a day, I was given some information that there was issues between Holman and Noem.
Heard the same thing.
And I know that this person was giving it to me because they felt it as legitimate info, but I also knew it wasn't coming. That info wasn't coming through the channels that I normally expect for something like that. So what that kind of tipped me off on is to kind of go to what you're saying, Mike, is okay. They're going to create a narrative here, right? The war of narratives. So if they want to think that there's issues here, then that means something probably is going to happen with Noem. So we can expect that. And sure enough, we saw the headlines of what's unfolding. And Trump moved her into this ambassador position, of taking over the Western, Americas. Now, let's also remember what's the intel that she's gathering the most, the cartels. Now, in her position that she was in, her scope of what she can do publicly is only so much. She can't really go outside that, because then it becomes, okay, is this a Department of War issue? Does this become an FBI issue? Our government is compartmentalized when it comes to these different agencies. But now there's a new position, and it's undefined. And she has all this intelligence, and Trump's keeping her there. I would look to see who becomes a part of that and what directions Trump gives her, because maybe he's expanding her ability to do more significant things. Because here's the other information, and this one I bet I know this is legit, is Trump's putting more guys on our southern border. Not military guys, but like BP guys, like our border patrol guys. We don't have a border issue as far as, the immigration, people trying to sneak in. So he's anticipating something, and I think the probability is with our cartels. And so I think maybe he's putting. I mean, maybe she did screw the boat on this one. I mean, I'm not going to discount that as a possibility, but I would say maybe she is going to be addressing something from the outside, and Trump needs to create camouflage for her. He's giving her top cover.
Well,
that's what I thought.
And I would think I like I heard that theory too, and I kind of like that better. It seems more plausible to me, because if you need real warriors and they're in the heat of a battle, and you are going to so easily throw them overboard, loyalty's got to go both ways here, right? So my belief is that it's kind of like, Mike, you and I had this conversation 5 years ago. We were talking about DeSantis. DeSantis is on the rise, and I'm like, we're talking. I said, the thing that bothers me about these guys, they give you these meaningless victories. Oh, DeSantis is shut down the masks and killing the mask mandate and all this bullshit. And I'm like, and he's going to run. I'm like, hold on a second. And I forget the legislation 3-4 years ago. Oh yeah, all these victories. He's our man. Look at this rider in this bill he just signed into law. Under a declared national or declared emergency, he can force quarantine and force vaccinate. There is the smoke right there. Forget all the other bullshit they do. They give you those victories to make you think they're one, and the only one that they take from you is the one that can wipe you out. It's the kill shot, right? Not the jab shot. So again, they're using their playbook against them, right? Using their tactics against them, using their admiralty maritime law system against them, all right, for legitimacy. I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, let's give them. There's so much chaos right now with this BS, and let's go ahead and let them think they got a victory because they ran Christie out. And like you said, this thing, 5D chess, is everything you said, Alpha. And then again, strategic development, this issue, let's give them a victory, embolden them. They think they're winning, and all that stuff. Like, it's a fascinating, battlefield to look at, from geopolitics, economics, banking included, military, you name it, the reshuffling of power. All those things are in play. Imagine strategically deploying every aspect and every element of an attack and coordinating. It's like a monkey, flipping balls and throwing them 3 balls, and then you throw them a 4th one. Like, how do I make this work? I think, as we learned a while ago, there's a reason why that video says, when this is done, this will be the greatest story ever told.
Yeah, and I had a dream last night, so it's kind of relevant. I was dwelling on it last night, and while I was dreaming, and then today it was like if I went, I in the dream it was like, well, why haven't I been introduced personally to President Trump? And then I got that if you got introduced personally to President Trump, the President Trump, of course there's doubles out there, but if you got introduced personally to him, then you would be linked to certain things that are going on that he's trying to run. And then it would expose them. I was like, that's brilliant. It's like, yeah, I got to stay in the background and work this, and I got to figure this stuff out myself, because if I get in there and someone shares something with me, it's going to make me, go in a certain direction. And then they're going to be, oh, now we see what they're doing. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of this stuff doesn't get exposed. And some other things that happen in the dream was, I got wind of something, and I went in on my own and figured it out, and then just destroyed whatever it was they were doing. And I know that if I had, gone into, cahoots with other people, it would have been exposed right away. They would have known that guy's working with that, and that guy does this, and this guy does that. This is what they're doing. So that's critical thinking. So
critical thinking,
very, very important is my point in all this. And I see people come in the chat all the time. They're like, you said this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, I say that because I depend on your critical thinking to figure out what I'm putting out there, because I can't put it out because YouTube would shut it down. We talk around some of this stuff, and you have to use your critical thinking on your own to come to the conclusion that this is what this is about. And so we give you a lot of hints, and that's what President Trump's been doing for over a decade now, giving us hints of things to come, and that's where we're at right now. This war against the deep state. He can't come right out and say this is what we're going to do to the deep state. That would destroy all the plans and all the people that had been, positioning themselves. It'd be done. So that's kind of something I thought that might help people out there. They're like, why? It's like little kids sometimes. Why, Daddy? Why? It's like, come on, you guys got to think for yourself. You know how we train our kids to start to think for themselves. I'm not saying that everybody out there is a kid, consciousness wise, but you really have to do the critical thinking, because there's a lot of NPCs out there that are just programmed to go with the flow, and they're part of the problem, really, to me, because they're in the way of us, achieving greatness. They don't have the soul spark that we do, so we have the critical thinking and overcome a lot of this stuff. That's where, like you're saying, Scott, this is going to be something we're going to look back on and go, holy smokes, this was ordained by higher powers, and everybody was just in the right spot, thought the right thing on their own instead of having to get together. So these are some of the things we're doing.
People got to remember, what is Trump's two most important responsibilities? The first one is the preservation of the Republic, America. The second one is the preservation of life. And in that order, and if you guys think about it for a little bit, you'll understand why it's in that order. So, I think Hollywood, has really made us want everything to be very dynamic, kick down the doors, drop the flashbang, and let's just drop mags, right? And then let's just watch videos of all these, gurneys with white bags, right? And everybody's like, yeah. But that comes at a cost. Mike, and myself, we've witnessed this, unfortunately. And every time you witness it, a little piece of you is just gone. Yeah. And you're powerful human beings, so you acclimate to that. But that would not be preserving the American way of life. You can't scar an entire nation and think that everything's going to be okay. And so, like in law enforcement, when we know that there's a couple of gang members that we got to take down, okay, we can go during the middle of the day while they're partying and they're drinking and probably high on some methamphetamines and kick down the doors and risk a gunfight where there's, neighbors and civilians and people in the area. Or we could just do it stealth, take him down as he's on his way to, to work. We know he's on his way to his girlfriend. It's not the Hollywood scene. It's not the dynamic scene. It's probably not going to make headlines, but it preserved life. And we got to remember, Trump's responsibility is preserve the republic and then the preservation of life. And if we all honestly judge what he's been doing, and trust me, I've been very frustrated with things like everybody else, but the end result, if we look at everything in hindsight that he's already done, it's like, okay, it all makes sense. We can't lose faith in that when it comes to him. He does have the biggest playbook of real active intel. That's him. And we have to just trust that this man is doing right.
Well, it all comes back to that vibration. If you have the vibration of belief, you see it. It's not hard to see. If you have the vibration of doubt, you're missing all of it. Because your brain is not, it's not aware of things that are happening. That, like Mikey picks stuff out alpha, you do it like crazy, reading the comms. Trump did this, said this, dropped this. Derek Johnson does that a lot, pieces stuff together in that way. He sees it because there's a strong vibration of belief. If you have a vibration of doubt, you're not going to see that stuff. And it makes you feel like you're wandering in the desert. I've not had that, because I believe that comes from a spiritual connection. If you truly believe that the things we were taught about this planet being run by the satanic realm, and if you believe in biblical prophecy, I think a lot of biblical prophecy is just planted by those guys. They'll do it 1,000 years from now. This is what's going to happen. I personally believe, based on all the shit we've learned, because they play the long ball, like you said, Alpha. They engineer that stuff into documents. So 1,000 years later, see, I told you this is going to happen. And then when they go out and make it happen, like they're looking for Armageddon, right? Well, and the excuse is people say, well, it's right there. It's biblical prophecy. It's supposed to happen. Let it happen. Again, I just believe they played the whole game out, from beginning clear to the end of time, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years. Don't trust any of that, obviously. And I don't know what the answer is. But if you have that vibration of belief, I think it's something you just feel in your soul. I haven't gotten irritated with Trump, maybe but a couple times, but I've pulled back a minute and I'm like, wait a second. Do you think we win this? You said it a billion times. Yeah. How do I know? I can't give you any empirical data. I can just tell you my soul has been at peace since they stole the election. Believe it or not, since they stole the election. Because then I realized, more as much as Biden coming out in 2019, and I knew it was Biden as soon as I saw him, and nobody said shit. I'm like, how do you pull that? How do you get anybody in Congress? Any Republican? They're going to sit there and say, what the hell is this? I've served with this asshole for 3 decades. That ain't him, right? I can tell you how many hairs are on his legs that the little kids love to rub, right? They don't know. And so nobody else really picked that out. But when you see that, and no Republican said anything in Congress to push back on it, my first thought was, there you go. Who has that power to make that happen? Military operation. And when I could see that or feel that, I'm like, oh man, this truly is a military op. Otherwise that shit would never happen.
Did you guys see it was about an hour and a half to 2 hours before Trump did the State of the Union. You guys see, it was like an 8-second clip of Chuck Schumer. When he came, so about a few hours before the State of the Union, it was Rubio and I want to say Ratcliffe. They went in, for sure Rubio, and I think Ratcliffe was there too, but they went and did an intelligence briefing on Iran to the Gang of Eight. And this was just a few hours. So about an hour and a half to 2 hours before Trump does the State of the Union, Schumer's coming out of that meeting and the media hits him. Now, this is Schumer. We know he hates Trump. He hates MAGA. He hates all of us. They don't ever pass up an opportunity to say that Trump's, whatever it is that he's doing, it's for the wrong reason. And I was blown away for that. I'll look for the clip to see if I can find it for you guys. I saved it in my bookmarks. Schumer comes up and they said, and he goes, what's going on with Iran is very serious and Trump's going to have to convince America about it. And then he walks away. I was like, wait, did that dude just act like an actual congressman? Like he bypassed that Trump's bombing. He's doing it on his own. He's violating the Wars Act, like all that. And he just said, hey, what's going on there is dangerous. And Trump needs to convince the American people of that. I hate Schumer, right? But he handled that the way you would expect an opposing politician from the other side to react. So whatever he saw in that meeting, which I absolutely believe is part of this military operation, scared the living bejesus out of him, that he dropped whatever script or role he goes by, and he communicated that message to the American people. Like that's the power that this military operation has. That as much as they think they control the narrative, when they're given something, it's irrefutable.
Well, the primaries that just happened in Texas, it seems like we're still in the same bullshit. As far as compromised elections and so forth. Greg Abbott won. Are you kidding me? That guy is on the level of the Wisconsin guy or Minnesota guy. So Tim Walz, they should be in a cell together. The fraud that's going to come out on Texas and it's starting to come out is going to be unbelievable. But now he's going to run for office again. Dr. Pete Chambers said that when he's elected, he's going to arrest Abbott. That's what he said. He was going to arrest him. So it sounds to me like, these guys are still playing their little friggin' games with these elections, putting in who they want to put in. And I can't believe that we didn't get an executive order, already start, because the primary is going to give us the shit people to vote on. What do you guys think? I think it's total bullshit.
I'll tell you. I'm more convinced, and I'm sure Alpha will back me on this. There is only one hope that this nation has, only one. And I've been talking to Jovan Pulitzer about this. We've been trying to orchestrate a mass campaign. I don't look, voter ID, yeah, but I didn't realize this until it was explained to me. You come across the border, as they've done for years. What does our criminal government do? Give them a social security card and a number, which they can take that card and that number and go to virtually any of these states now and get a driver's license. And what are they going to show up to vote with? A driver's license. It is not about voter ID. And Trump did say this in the State of the Union. I'm sitting there leaning in. He said some things, and I'm like, this is bullshit. It needs to be proof of citizenship. Proof of citizen. A driver's license doesn't give you that proof. And then he said it. I'm like, thank God. Now here's the thing. If you go to Twitter, I recommend this. Do it now. Go to Twitter. Type in the search bar. Hashtag burn the voter rolls. Burn the voter rolls. Look at that video there. Joanne Pulitzer's got 2 of them. So what do? I'm trying to think of the 3 protocol. One of them, of course, is to repost it, and you copy at POTUS and at real Donald Trump. If we have hundreds of thousands of people every day, it shows up in his feed, and he's getting pummeled. Burn the voter rolls. So what we need is, and my belief is why we get to this point where there is a post that I just saw back on the Q drops. It said midterms parentheses push ? Well, that Delta's probably about 6-7 years right now. And I thought the only way we have a fair election, they got to burn all these voter rolls because you have all these illegitimate voters, and they got to have citizenship to vote. We're not there now. I wouldn't be surprised if they've orchestrated the failing of the SAVE Act or not getting it passed. John Thune, I despise him by what I see. I am not certain. I am not convinced that he's not an operator. I'm not convinced either they've got him hung up by his neck and he's tap dancing to keep breathing for them, or that he's been part of this role for a long time. And I do believe it's consistently fluid. I believe as it comes, they look at the playing field, they have the baseline of the strategy. Okay, now here's what we're dealing with. Let's do this. Let's piss off America against both of these guys, both parties. So when they go in there, at whatever point it happens to be, where they start arresting Congress, like a lot of them, or you want to implement NASARA, one of the baselines in NASARA is once they're declaring the enactment, which is already passed, once you're declaring the enactment of NASARA law, there's a number of things have to happen right now. The president is removed from power. The vice president removed from power. All of Congress are disbanded. Military takes full control, because now it's going to be the distribution of obviously the stolen wealth of the planet and recapture and reinstitute the republic. How do you get people to acquiesce to that, not flip out? Well, again, this stuff here pisses people. Congress's approval rating is what, 12%? That's probably the lowest ever in history. And then this kind of bullshit, there is no greater stage set than to say, we need bumper stickers, 50 million on cars. It says re-elect no one. Like a campaign to re-elect none of these bastards. And I mean state, federal, and local. Because guess what? This country went to shit. Who's in power? Local scumbags, state scumbags, federal. Get rid of all of them. But I'm not convinced John Thune is not doing what he's told. Maybe he's one of the good guys, or maybe he's a shitbag. I personally think he is, because I don't think you get to that position without being one. And I think this stuff is to piss people off. And I think that's what it's going to take for America to accept Trump declare national emergency. We are putting on, or not even Trump. Now, I'm going to throw this at you guys and tell me what you think. Not even Trump. Because even if Trump does it, they're going to go nuts. Here's Hitler again, right? They're going to tear the country apart if he does it. I'm going to throw this at you. Let me throw this. I'm setting you up. I want you guys to take this from here. First arrest will send shockwaves. Now, I just saw, I can't think of who the guy was, just had a Twitter post or something, and he's saying Donald Trump has been removed from power secretly. He has been arrested. J.D. Vance is on deck to be the president. They got one on Trump, and he has been arrested. And I thought, come on. And then I pulled back and said, why would a guy like this that has credibility, I can't think of his name, put shit like that out? And I thought, oh my God. First arrest will send shockwaves. Trump gets arrested, whatever they treat, whatever treason, I don't care what it is. JD Vance comes in, right? JD Vance is president, right? And now people are cheering Trump. Let's say Trump is in prison. He's going to be protected in prison. And then the military makes their move, whether it's almost immediately or months down the road, to take down this criminal government. And they can't say Trump is doing it. It ain't Trump. He's in jail because Trump's to be isolated from this because they can't use him as a battering ram. Who knows? We've seen crazy shit happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if because I keep thinking, who is the first arrest? First arrest sends shockwaves.
First, so the quote from Q is actually first indictment unseal will trigger mass population awakening. First arrest will verify action and confirm future direction. So kind of in the context of that Q post, what it's talking about is that as D-class begins to happen and the first indictment unsealed will bring about an arrest, and that arrest will verify future direction. Future direction means the takedown of the deep state. I'm still adamant that that's going to be John Brennan. James Comey obviously was the first one, if we want to look at it like that. It wasn't really an arrest. It was an unsealed indictment. But John Brennan, I'm 100% positive is going to be the first one. That's going to come out of the Southern District of Florida's grand jury that's already impaneled. 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, they just subpoenaed a bunch of transcripts from the U.S. Senate pertaining to John Brennan's 2016, 2017, and 2018 testimony under oath, which is interesting because it's outside of the statute of limitations. So why would the grand jury want that? Well, when you start talking about a RICO case and you start talking about perjury, that becomes relevant. And so John Brennan is really got his days numbered right now. And Susan Rice was also subpoenaed under that grand jury. And so if you want to look at it also, is we just found out yesterday that the FISA court was hacked, that the FBI's FISA computer that has all of the records of who has active FISA warrants on them was hacked. Now they're claiming it was China, but I'm telling you right now, it was absolutely these deep state actors, because this is my guess of what happened. Is you have Susan Rice and you have John Brennan that are in the grand jury, and they're getting the 460 minute. Yeah, damn right we are. So
say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so. That's right. But so you have them go in for questioning from the U.S. attorney, and they start asking questions, and John Brennan and Susan Rice are probably going, how did they know that? Who in our groups are compromised? So then what do? They form some action going out there, hacking the FISA court, blaming it on China through proxy IP addressing, and they try to find out who is got the active FISA warrants to where they are basically compromised. That's what I think is going on with this whole context. And I think that, I know I've been saying it, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, Trump's timing is impeccable. And we have to understand that Trump is going to choose the correct timing to bring all of this about. And what I really think is happening, and this is why I don't think Trump is scared about the midterm elections at all, is that all of this is culminating with various portions of D-class coming out. You got to remember, there was a PSYOP ran directly on the left right after the 2024 election. The left were coming out on, Open Sky or whatever that is, and all the apps that they're on, talking about how Trump stole the 2024 election by hacking the ES&S voting machines. I'm like, wait, what? And this was like some anonymous CIA whistleblower that came out and said this. I said, this is a PSYOP. This is a PSYOP to get the left to start looking into election fraud and see how it can be stolen with election machines. And then when this information actually comes out, then they're going to be like, well, actually, that's true because I've researched this before. And the same thing goes for the Epstein files. I mean, 2019, Epstein was a no-name. Nobody in the household knew who the hell Jeffrey Epstein was. Today, everybody does. Why? Because of the PSYOP that was played on people. You had the fake influencers come out with their binders like, Epstein. People have never mentioned the damn name Epstein before in their lives. They're getting these binders with all old documents. They don't know that from their ass to their face. A few weeks later, you have Elon Musk come out and say Trump is in the Epstein files. The left loses their shit. What happens after the left loses their shit? They begin researching Jeffrey Epstein. They begin going out there. It's talked about in The View. It's talked about in the mainstream media. And this becomes a household name. But not only that, as the left begins going out there and seeing the atrocities of what Epstein was doing, the people associated and affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein, to when the first tranche of information comes out, no mention of Trump, they go out there and they say, hey, we want that information released. They get a bill in Congress, bipartisan support. Almost everybody in Congress approves it. Trump signs it. You get millions of documents that flood out there, and they compromise world leaders. They compromise world power brokers, politicians, financiers of politicians. But not only that, is Donald Trump comes out a few weeks ago and says, these Democrats and their donors are implicated by the Epstein files. Well, that's interesting because I've gone through a bunch of the Epstein files and I haven't really seen anything about Democrats and their donors. Yeah. And so now we just found 64,000 new Epstein files were released yesterday. And I'm saying, look, there's 2.5 million more Epstein files yet to be released that the DOJ is saying we're not going to release. Then you got over 2 million files being held by the CIA, which you have various different people pushing for the CIA to release those. I think this is going to culminate right after the primaries. Right after the primaries, you're going to have this new tranche of Epstein files released. It's going to implicate Democrats and their donors, which is going to cause certain incumbents who just won their primaries to resign from office. And when they resign for office, now the Democrats got to backfill that position with emergency elections. They basically lost the election at that point in time. And now the whole nation, the precipice, have come to understand what the Epstein files were all about and what was actually going on. I think that would be the ultimate trump card. I think that would be the ultimate level of disclosure. And in the midst of all of this, you have FISA-gate, which is coming down, and indictments that are flowing out through FISA-gate. You have, obviously, there's bigger things happening on the global stage, and I think that that's taken a lot of Trump's attention right now, and this is why we're seeing the timing specifically with Iran, and this is more about China. But in the context of domestic deep state, we're looking at the takedown indictments of Brennan, Susan Rice, Clapper, these types, prior to the midterm elections. But it's going to be laid out in a declassification format to where the information is going to come about. People are going to see exactly what was happening, and then that stuff is going to flow. The same thing with the 2020 election fraud. I think that there's a grand jury going to be impaneled here probably in the next few weeks in Pennsylvania pertaining to the 2020 election fraud. One thing that we didn't know was actually going on is DNI Tulsi Gabbard. She sent a team out to Puerto Rico back in August. And what they did is they went out there and they secured the Dominion voting machines, and they found all of the network connectivity that was going on. They saw how they were stealing elections through these election voting machines. And then that prompted the Fulton County raid that we saw, which DNI Tulsi Gabbard was there. Why is the director of national intelligence at a FBI raid in Fulton County, Georgia? Because it's a problem with the national security, because there's foreign actors involved. And so when you start having all of that put together, now you bring out, declassification of this information. You have a grand jury form about this. Hopefully indictments come, but then that prompts Donald Trump to a national security emergency on election integrity and infrastructure prior to the midterm elections, which ensured that we win the midterm elections. And I came out the other day and someone said, that was the dumbest comment ever. And I said, look, we're going to have a red wave in November. There's not a doubt in my mind. Act Blue is under criminal investigation and not taking in any money due to the fraud that they were perpetuating. You shut down the majority of these Democrat NGOs. USAID was the primary financing mechanism for the Democrats. They would send that to foreign aid and then rebound that back through dark money channels, Arabella Advisors, the Tide Foundation, into proxy shell companies. And those proxy shell companies would get fake information of Act Blue donors. They would spoof their credit cards without the 3-digit code on the back, and then they would make donations in Democrat donors' names without their knowledge, and this is how they were able to fund various different Democrat candidates. That's going to be coming down the pipeline. So I think that the Democrat Party is done. They just don't know it yet. And I think that with Al Green going to a runoff election, with Haskett the other day, or what's her name, the one from Texas, losing her primary, Dan Crenshaw losing his...
Crockett lost, right?
Yeah, Crockett lost. Dan Crenshaw lost. This is a turning of the tides.
Awesome.
Turning of the tides. I mean, listen, if you guys wanted to know what winning looks like, this is winning.
That's awesome. I hadn't caught up with any of it. I didn't know Crenshaw lost, man. It just became a great Friday.
Yep, Crenshaw lost.
Yeah. Bad Navy SEAL. Oh well, it happens.
Yeah, it does. That's interesting, Josh. That is a great landscape to look at. I hope you're right. It sounds like that's the most plausible explanation of how this thing emerges, so we don't go into election cycle with the current apparatus, and it has to be a declared national emergency on infrastructure because it is. And I think has he already declared that earlier, or he declared the election infrastructure as critical infrastructure, which is
Yep.
which is important. Critical infrastructure. With critical, that means that it can be defined in ways that basically you've got complete latitude on whatever steps you need to take based on whatever whatever your plans are to do it without any opposition because of that declaration.
Yeah, we're in for one hell of a ride. The next year is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I'm like so excited just for everything to start moving forth right now, because I mean every day is a new breaking news story of what's happening in the world, and it's pretty crazy. And we're entering into what I call the 500-year leap technologically. This is going to be absolutely mind blowing over the next 20 years. And so I kind of look at the world right now as we have one step out of the door of the old world, or sorry, we have two steps out of the door of the old world and one step into the new world. And we're in this transitional phase right now.
Well, here's something I think, and whether we return to an asset-backed currency, something's coming up on our 250th anniversary. Maybe July 4th is about something like that. But I don't know if you guys have been watching U.S. Debt Clock. We've done a couple shows with these folks that call themselves the Royal House of We the People. Jim McCrank, they call him Cranker. Anna Marins, who I think you might know her in Brazil. Mike, I'm not sure. Anna Marins, Brazilian, and Mike Likens. They're doing great shows, and they've been studying the debt clock for like a year. And man, there are bombs all over that debt clock. I'll show you real quick. Here's some of the bombs they drop. Look at this. This stuff like this here. These things are dropping all the time. Silver, the Achilles heel of the fiat money system. And there's stuff they're showing on many levels about silver. In fact, we did a show. In fact, I'll scroll down here. Look at this right here. Recaptured assets, 8 trillion plus, almost $9 trillion recaptured assets. Total hidden wealth, 211 trillion. It's showing wealth per citizen in this country is the true wealth of what's recaptured per citizen. That's including a newborn baby, $616,000. And I'm trying to think. There's other things on here where you can click. I don't know if this will do anything here, but I guess that's it. But this, and I didn't know this, but if you watch this, I think the next one's coming out. Probably I'm going to release it on Monday. But when you see what's happening with the U.S. debt clock, from the monetary perspective, that change is coming. Got to figure out how to kill the share here. Stop screen share.
I have something I wanted to share too that lines up with what Josh was talking about right now, because he's making smiles. So I love that dude. Back on October 17th of 2025, and you'll remember this, Josh, because we were smiling then. I did a post on the list of names, a lot of the names that Josh was talking about it, and a man that that I respect and and pay attention to what he does, reposted this, and it had some significant information in it. I'm talking about General Flynn for those that aren't catching on this post. And so I want to share this with you guys. And like I said, I'm pretty sure you'll remember this, Josh. I don't know if you guys can see it. There we go. Okay. So it's a 2-minute video and I'll play it, but I just want to go through this right here. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's long. But let me make it a little bigger so easier for everybody to see. But it says, remember, this is October of 25. Indictment analysis, who is next? Comey, Bolton, the first dominoes have fallen, but this time the counterstrike has a general. They came after General Michael Flynn with crossfire razor. They tried to end his career, his honor, his oath, but history has a savage sense of irony. The man they tried to silence is now advising Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and DNI Tulsi Gabbard inside the system that once targeted him. This is important because this goes to what Josh was talking about with Tulsi Gabbard doing these RICO cases. One of the things that Josh said is going back to 2015 and 2016 with the transcripts from Brennan. Well, you don't just get to say, hey, well, we're going to go and look at 2016 for that. You have to have a nexus. You have to build the bridge backwards. And this comes into predicate crimes. So, because this is what we do in the gang world when we do gang injunctions. If we know that there's something back in 2016 that we want to use in this gang injunction, we have to show a connection. This goes through the ongoing conspiracy act. So we go back 2 to 3 years, we show there's a predicate crime by this same group. Now from that 2 to 3 years, we get to jump 2 to 3 years, and you keep leapfrogging back as far as you can go, as long as you have this continued nexus. So when they're going back to 2015 and 2016 transcripts, what that's telling you, and the laws may vary differently in federal, it may be 5 years versus 2 or 3. But the point is, that means that they established predicates to get them that far back. And the only way you're going to do that is you have to have already identified a criminal enterprise, and you have to already legally establish the ongoing conspiracy doctrine. So we know that those things are in play. So to keep that in consideration. But I go through this, and like I said, I'll drop the link in the chat for whoever wants it. But I go through the list of all these names. First one being James Comey, then Bolton, McCabe, Stroke, Lisa Page, Brennan, and we go all through all these. But I want to bring it down to a part that right here, the doctrine of accountability. General Flynn's guiding philosophy can be summed up as restoring the oath, a return to the sacred promise sworn by every soldier, agent, and public servant, to defend the Constitution, not the bureaucracy that hides behind it. Every decision, every reform, every act of oversight is measured in a single question. Does this strengthen the republic or the bureaucracy?
Brilliant.
Under DNI Tulsi Gabbard, that doctrine has become operational. Her ODNI team are fusing declassification with reform, creating a transparent record of how politics infiltrated intelligence and how that infiltration ends under President Trump. What was once buried in darkness and secrecy is being pulled into sunlight. This is not vengeance, it's retribution, the deliberate reclamation of the republic's integrity and the oaths that built it. Final thoughts. America is watching the machine that once defined power devour itself. From Langley to Foggy Bottom, from contractor boardrooms to newsroom studios, the old playbook and the old guard is collapsing under the weight of its own deception being exposed by President Trump. A new doctrine is rising in its place: truth over politics, oath over power, republic over bureaucracy. Flynn was a test case. Now he's the architect of the fix, and the storm that once targeted him, it's reversing its course. Who are they saving the perp walk for? Your thoughts. Now, there's some things, the general went and reposted this, and there's definitely some purposeful cue verbiage that I used in this post, which is kind of what you gave me and Josh a chuckle. But I want to play this clip, if you gentlemen don't mind. It's 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Go ahead.
We cannot move forward. The nation cannot move forward. I don't care how good our how much Trump, adjusts the economy, and he will. But we cannot move forward unless people are held accountable. And I mean very, very senior people, and they all know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about, and I've said it many times. It's the start with Obama and work your way down, right? I mean, and maybe you don't throw a former president into prison, but maybe you do. Maybe somebody says, well, who directed you, John Brennan? Who directed you, Jim Clapper? Who directed you, Susan Rice? Under oath, under the lights, and with the threat of prison, okay? And so who directed you? Well, if they say nothing, okay, then that's fine. Then you're going to go to prison. You're going to prison. You're going to prison for treason, okay? Treason. That's a very strong word. It's a very strong word. And like all these pardons, right? These pardons, the only thing that can't overcome a pardon is treason, is the commitment of treason. I mean, I get called a traitor all the time, and I say, well, wait a second, and so if I'm a traitor, why am I walking the streets, right? If I committed treason, why am I walking the streets? I was never charged with that. They dismissed my case because they lied, right? And so, you think Mueller and Andrew Weissman, who was the deputy to Mueller, would have let me go? Had I was a traitor or that I committed treason? The treason was committed against me as not just Mike Flynn, an Army general, but the national security advisor by a duly elected president of the United States. The income or the outgoing administration under Barack H. Obama committed treason. They committed a conspiracy to undermine a duly elected president, and it hasn't stopped.
So what he's articulating there is the criminal enterprise. You go to this person, Brennan, who ordered you to do this? Who ordered you to do this? What he's describing is the criminal enterprise. And what he says at the tail end of that conversation is this was a conspiracy to undermine the president. What he's telling you guys there is RICO. This is RICO that's being played out. And I'll give it back to you guys here. Judge Janine just put out a comment. I think it was yesterday or the day before. People were saying, "Hey, well, the auto pin, it's not getting charged. It's not." And she came out and she made this comment on her X post. We cannot talk about ongoing investigations. And this is what we have been screaming for so long. And this is what's been weaponized against this administration. They're calling Pam Bondi to testify. And I'm curious to how she's going to navigate this, because if they say, why haven't you released these documents? There's only 3 reasons documents can't get released. It's a victim, it's a minor, or it's a part of an ongoing investigation.
No, national security.
National security. Now, with that being the case, well, we know the victims and the minors get redacted. So then the only other reason is these ongoing investigations. Now, she can't comment to that, but she also can't lie. So how that unfolds when she goes to testify is going to be very interesting. Does she come out and just say, we can't comment on investigations that are unfolding? Because if she does
why was the FBI on Epstein's Island 2 days ago?
I'm telling you, something is going to happen either at that testimony or immediately following, because she can't lie. She's gonna be under penalty of perjury.
Well, and here's a prime example. She can't lie. Kristi Noem was just fired for lying to Congress last week. Thank goodness, because I can't stand the bitch. But she was fired because she lied and she misappropriated funds and lied to the Senate about it. And then Trump was asked the question. He's like, I don't know anything about that. And that also shows something about the White House, that Kristi Noem probably asked the executive, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to increase our budget from 215 to 385 for this whole campaign that we're doing. And Susie Wiles is like, sure, go ahead and do it. And never told Trump.
I'm glad you went there, because I like Kristi Noem. But me and Josh, we differ on a couple of these actors. I like Kristi Noem. She lied if she created the information that she testified to. But if somebody, and you named the name right there, Josh, if somebody told her that she had authority, because what's going to happen now? Kristi knows people are going to be reaching out to Trump and being like, no, you told me I could. And Trump's going to be like, I never told you that. I didn't even know about it. Now you got to figure out who told her.
Well, right. And then top of that, there's a few other parts of this. So we know that Susie Wiles is going to be leaving this year. We just don't know when. But do you know who was in the White House today with Susie Wiles and Donald Trump?
I do not know this.
Condoleezza Rice.
Why? Wait a minute. What?
Nope.
Condoleezza Rice in the White House today with Donald Trump and Susie Wiles.
Let's talk about this, Josh. What do they have? They're going to use leverage on her to get her to do whatever they want? What?
Well, number one is when we hear Condoleezza Rice, we typically think Obama. It's old Bush holdover, right? Mm-hmm. The woman, by the way, highly educated, incredibly smart in the sense, Rhodes Scholar, if that means anything. Anybody knows Cecil Rhodes?
She's an incredible expert on Russia from top to bottom. Not
only Russia, but the Middle East.
The Middle East.
Yep. And so my idea here, and I don't know if I'm right on this, Trump has some backfilling of positions to do. One of those is his national security advisor. And the other is going to be Susie Wiles when she leaves. I think that Condoleezza Rice is potentially being looked at for one of those positions.
I will quit.
Well, the one thing about Condoleezza Rice is she's not a globalist. So I'm not supporting her, but I'm saying she's not a globalist. She was never a globalist.
I had a back and forth with one of her CIA guys. This goes back all the way to the meetings she was having at the time surrounding 9/11. I'll quit, man.
Just throw the papers up.
That's it.
I'll give you a ride home.
But if there's one thing that we've seen, I mean, you got to remember, you got people like Scott Bassett and Lutnick. Lutnick was obviously associated with September 11th and Epstein. You got Bassett, who worked in the belly of the beast of the London bankers. Is Trump has turned these people, and he's utilizing their skill sets to our benefit, to the American people's benefit. So my thoughts are, well, did Condoleezza, come in and say, hey, I'm happy to tell you everything you need to know about September 11th because I was in the administration during that, and I can tell you what Dick Cheney was doing. I can tell you what George Bush was doing. I can tell you all of this stuff, and I'm willing to testify in a classified hearing about all of this. And if you need my help, I'm happy to help. And I think Trump has an angle of how he's playing everybody.
Let me offer you another angle here, Josh, and this goes back to some of the things that we used to do in gangs. Is we know that there's a gang member. And we know that within the gang, they look at these people a certain way.
Yep.
So we'll bring them in, say, hey, you can come in with your attorney. We can go to your house, or you can come in. We need to talk to you about this car that people are saying that you stole. And we know it's BS. It's a BS story. The guy knows he didn't do it. So he's going to come in with a lot of confidence, right? But it has nothing to do with what we're going to question him on. What it has to do with is our gang guy that's out in the field with the other gang members that's like, listen, you all need to tell us about this homicide. We're not going to talk. You might not be talking. Somebody in this gang's talking. So you want to get caught in the dark, you get caught in the dark. Ain't no one in our gang talking. And then that's when our guy in the field says, well, that's funny because, gangster Joe Smith is at the police department right now. So now what happens, the phones start, and we're monitoring all this stuff. We have search warrants on all these devices. We're tracking it. All of a sudden, hey, what's so-and-so doing? Or what's, hey, are you snitching? So now this guy comes back. Nah, man, I wasn't snitching. They called me in there for some stolen car thing. They ain't buying that. They're like, no, bro, you were in there when they were hitting us up about this.
Disruption.
So now put this in the perception of Condoleezza Rice, knowing her extensions.
Yeah.
They see her go into that office with Susie Wiles and Trump, and it's like, what was she in there for? That creates conversation on the wire.
Oh, it does.
I knew some guys that were basically her protective detail, and they all spoke super highly of her. And then when I was, doing the Vassar Brimmer detail in the early, late 2002, 2003, it wasn't Bush Jr. that came in and did the conversation with Brimmer. It was Condoleezza Rice, and she was rock solid. And so I got a different view of her. I've heard a lot of different things, so I'm open. If she's bad, she's bad. I mean, there's a lot of people out there look good, but who knows? Maybe she isn't bad. Maybe
there's a lot of things that I think we throw into an umbrella and we call bad simply because of associations.
True.
And the thing is Trump would know best.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these guys are vetted by the military. Anybody stepping into a role, they've been completely vetted. And they're not stepping into a role, in my opinion, that close to the White House to do bad things. So, not against the operation. I couldn't imagine. I think sometimes people get Condoleezza and Susan Rice cross wires there. So Susan Rice, no way. Condoleezza, that's an acceptable possibility to me, not Susan Rice, though.
Yeah. And then don't forget about Valerie Jarrett, because that name's going to be coming up very, very soon with a lot of this discussion, including the 2016 ICA Intelligence Community Assessment that is under the part of the investigation with Brennan in the Florida grand jury. So, Valerie Jarrett, for people who don't know, she's Iranian. Mm-hmm. And so she was the Muslim Brotherhood, the connection between the Obama administration and Iran. And now that we're in Iran, Trump called out today and said, I want complete unconditional surrender. And I think there's parts of this that they want to get in there, and they want testifying, and they want records of nailing Obama and that administration down. And they know that Iran has a lot of that. But most of this is about China. And the question is how long is China going to keep losing? Because China doesn't like losing. China cannot continue to lose. Losing Iran in the Straits of Hormuz is a red flag for China, which means that my thoughts, if I'm China and I'm being dismantled in my global infrastructure, and I had three legs of an energy corridor that I controlled, and now two of them have been knocked down, and that is my lifeblood, then I have to go kinetic. And that's the question: is what is China planning? Because they have to do something, or they are going to be knocked back 20, 30 years technologically, and they're going to lose for the next 100 years due to the AI race. And so I think that we're going to even see something like that this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, China just lost Venezuela, and they lost Iran.
Yep.
So that's huge. We're going into Greenland and all kind of crazy stuff. So we're boxing them in. We're surrounding them. Now, Condoleezza, a little bit more on that. That was the Iraq war, and now we're having the Iran war. So she could be a good source of that. Now, those of us that are warriors here, we can tell everybody these wars are bullshit. They should be over in a very short period of time, and they drag this shit on. So maybe Condoleezza Rice is going to give some insight into that to Trump. I don't know, because there could be a lot of different things that are happening to that.
And I was wondering, does she dime people off on the 9/11 investigation?
Say that again. What'd you say, Alpha?
I said, is she going to dime people off in the 9/11 investigation? Like my brain's just going to be jacked up today as I try to maneuver on what was the good reason she could be coming in there.
Right.
I'm curious because she had access to that stuff.
Our curiosity translates into the other side scared shitless right now, because it multiply that times 10. Another big problem China's got too. It's not just energy, it's food. They're in deep, deep shit because they don't have the capacity to produce food. And what do we have control of now? We have control of energy, control of food. What else do they need to survive? Not only that, they're a collapsing country. I worked with a guy named Don Ashlock. His family, he was the founder of the AHEAD Foundation. This is going back 15 years. Asia Health Economic and Development Foundation, where his family is multi-generational missionaries in India, and they were setting up medical infrastructure throughout India. At least that's what AHEAD was tasked for. And what I found interesting, in the work we did with him, is learning why India is so important to the future. Because let's just in the capacity of healthcare specifically, what you come to realize is that we have these graying societies. We've got the baby boom generation here in the U.S. This block's massive. It's 46 to 64. It's massive. And then the following generations are very small, right? So when you're looking at the Social Security thing, obviously there's not enough people working to help these people up here to finance their life. What's worse isn't the medical care. It's not because of the cost. You don't have, let's just talk about U.S. Let's go to the global scene. The one-child policy in China has left them with a massively graying society. It's going to be dying off in the next 20 to 25 years. So if you have dirt cheap medical care in the world, there's not enough medical providers on the planet just for two countries, this country and China. India, on the other hand, has 600 million people under the age. Now it would be about roughly back 10, 15 years ago, it's 25. So those 600 million people now in that country under the age of, say, 35. Their greatest, and I think fully 1/3 of all people that go through any type of medical type training in the US, if I'm not mistaken, back then was from India. India, their greatest export in the world is going to be human capital. So that's why they were setting up this medical infrastructure all throughout India, or tasked to do that, because the education needs to be done. And they're going to be the healthcare providers in the current system we have. They'd be the healthcare providers of the world. Now, obviously, the med type technologies are going to, the capacity kind of eliminates that, but it's going to take a lot of catch up time. But the Chinese are forked because, again, when you have a collapsing population in that nation, it's devastating. China's not our threat, I don't believe, in 20 years, or maybe 25 or less. I don't think they're our threat, because they're going to be dying off like crazy.
Well, what is it? Wolf doesn't question the ethics of its dying prey, and neither does a civilization. So the civilization will easily fight to ensure its own survival. And that's why I said that we're coming to the midst of some type of kinetic conflict between the U.S. and China, because China is getting a clear indication that there's a problem, and they know that they're losing. And the idea that they didn't interfere with Iran, that's interesting. That's because there's reports coming out that they were doing, they're giving radar and satellite information to Iran. That's just bullshit. It's not true. People were talking about this. Well, Iran has never done such strategic strikes before. Yes, they did. During the 12-day war with Israel and Iran, Iran shot a hypersonic missile through the Iron Dome and hit the Mossad headquarters. The reason people are saying that they didn't do strategic strikes in Israel during the 12-day war is because Iran was hitting schools, restaurants, and just random apartment buildings. You want to know why? Because that's where Israel is hiding military and intelligence complexes underneath them. Every damn strike that Iran did was strategic. So they're like, well, there's no way Iran could make these strategic strikes in Saudi Arabia and Dubai. Yeah, there is. And their foreign minister actually proved it, that they're independent and isolated factions of their military that have no communication whatsoever because they've been cut off from the chain of command, because this was a decapitation event, that are operating with old intelligence, and that's why they're hitting targets that have no assets in them. And so it's kind of interesting right now. We are watching Iran kind of falter away. And I said this a year ago. I said, look, if we ever went to Iran, it'll be a decapitation event. It'll be over within a few weeks. It'll be over in 24 hours. They just wouldn't know about it. And with the missile technology, people are saying, well, they have 5,000 missiles. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand how the U.S. military operates through feint attacks. And what you do is you allow Iran to shoot off ballistic missiles. So you go in and make your primary attack. You take out command and control. You take out the various different silos that the location is. Now they bring out these heavy diesel ballistic missile launchers. They're looking at 25 to 50 miles from Silo Depot, right? From the missile depot. So 25 to 50 miles from Silo Depot, they take these launchers, which they only have 350 of them. They launch a ballistic missile, and everything was just caught by satellite intelligence. And so now we go back, we go look at it, we find that launcher, we go send a freaking bomber in there. It takes that launcher out there, then we rewind the satellite data and find out where its origin came from. Now we send a B-2 in there with some bunker busters, and every missile that Iran shoots, they're losing dozens to hundreds of missiles every single missile they shoot. And guess what? I just reposted this because Jesse Waters just posted it and said Iran's missiles went to be shooting hundreds a day a week ago to 8 today. And the reason is because we've depleted their inventory by just this feint attack. Watching them launch a ballistic missile, we go out there, we take out the launcher, which they only have 300 of them, and then we go out there and we take out the missile silo with dozens, if not hundreds of missiles. So that 5,000 missiles, it doesn't mean shit. And then you got these other pundits that are on freaking X and on Fox News and all this shit. Man, where do they get these people? These military strategists who's never served a day in the military in their life. And they're sitting there talking about the U.S. military armaments are depleted. You had some dude that's like a nationwide bestseller the other day talking about, oh, I'm very scared that Iran's they're waiting for the United States to deplete their arsenal. We depleted over hundreds and hundreds of Tomahawk missiles in Ukraine. We never send any Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, you putz. And then he's on there telling people we're going to run out of missiles and armaments. And I'm like, dude, do you understand how the U.S. military strategy does this? We go in there and we use out of position long range bombers to go in and take out command and control missile infrastructure. And then we go in with stand in assets, helicopters and jets to take out strategic precision strikes, which you can do thousands a day. And we already have obtained these objectives within less than a week and a half. Iran is completely neutralized. Anybody who wants to argue with that, I will do that all day long. I mean, number one is Donald Trump said it today. I will only accept unconditional surrender. Okay? That means that the clergy, the new Ayatollah, the mullahs, they're gone. They're done. They're just going to keep on bombing them until they're all dead. The idea that the Supreme Ayatollah came out and called for the fatwa for the jihad, oh, this is interesting because guess what happened? Nothing. The Shiite Muslims are a very, very small section of all Muslims in the Middle East, primarily all Sunni. And you have the jihad that was called for. But here's the thing. Hezbollah was decapitated 2 years ago by Israel. And when they were decapitated, guess what? They were also infiltrated. This is why half of Hezbollah has been disarmed in Lebanon just recently, a few days ago. And they laid down their arms and said they're not going to defend Iran. Then you have Hamas, which is not going to defend Iran. So what you have is you have Muslims in the Middle East going, I'm done. I'm not going to go do a jihad. Forget about this stuff. Iran, you're on your own, because we just watched the United States of America absolutely annihilate you, and we don't want that for ourselves. And the people of Iran, they don't stand with the mullahs or the Ayatollah. So we are going to see the regime change fully capable here in the next 3 months in Iran. That's going to be a strategic strike directly to China. That's going to progress to global stage, because what's going to happen next, and I'm calling this shit right now. People want to listen and write this one down. Within 6 to 12 months, Russia is going to form some type of cooperation agreement with the United States of America, and they're going to go back on the dollar settlement system. They're going to start doing energy exploration in the Arctic with the United States, and they'll even start military drilling with the United States of America. But they're going to take Odessa in Ukraine first, which is going to end the Ukraine war.
Yep.
And tell me how you interpret this. So you had, I think it was yesterday, the day before, where China ordered they ceased the exports of the refineries. What's this? How is that tied to Iran? Because I know you got something on this.
So China ceased all of their imports from refineries into China. So basically,
I'll get it for you right now.
Yeah. And what you have to remember is when we start talking about energy dominance or AI has three primary components. It has energy, it has data, and it has computational power. Well, interesting enough, blockchain has those three things. That's why Donald Trump wants the United States to be the blockchain capital of the world, because those three things provide an ancillary backbone to artificial intelligence, which then becomes national security. But when you start talking about rare earth minerals and metals, other resources and energy, there's two ideas here. Number one is excavation of those resources, and then the transit and transportation of those. So you have around the world what's known as energy corridors. Taiwan, Iran, Strait to Hormuz, Straits of Taiwan, and then the Panama Canal. These are the three primary corridors for energy distribution globally. We already control the Panama Canal, and we already control the Strait of Taiwan, and now we're about to control the Strait of Hormuz. And so China, I think what they're doing is, because of the aggression that's happening right now in the Straits of Hormuz, they called off all of their exports that they have refineries operating in the Middle East. They don't want those ships to get blown up leaving that area. So they're just going to the open market to go buy, which I think is probably a strategy that nobody's even talking about with Donald Trump, of what he's doing with China, isolating them through energy, is that by taking out Venezuela, what happened? China's buying Venezuelan oil through the United States right now. So we control the energy corridor and we control the energy period. Next, you have Iran. So they were getting 80% of Iran's oil. So China was getting about 27% of their oil from Iran at 30% of retail price. Okay. Now, what happens when that switches off? Well, now they're forced back onto the global markets. Where are they going to go? They're going to UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Well, what happens when those countries also have defense cooperation agreements and defense alliance agreements with the United States of America, and a war breaks out between the United States and China? Well, we have to enforce those proxy sanctions on China for energy, and they can't last more than 100 days. So it's game, set, match right now for China. They already lost and they don't know it. Iran already lost and they don't know it. Trump has already won, and he knows it.
So Bloomberg reported 2 days ago, China tells top refiners to halt diesel and gasoline exports.
Out of China?
Out of China.
So, okay, so that's China just flexing its muscles again, like what they did. So it's a PLA licensing agreement. So anything that is being distributed out of China through the refineries, diesel and gas, that is going anywhere, they're just halting it.
It was diesel, gas, and oil. And one of the theories I was considering is if they're trying to halt the exports of some of the stuff that they have in their reserves, is it because they're knowing that there's only so long before they're choked out and they don't have enough of that stuff?
Building up their reserves,
Yep. But also there's another interesting coincidence with all of this. is for the first time in years, China has not ran military drills around Taiwan or send their massive bombers to fly over Taiwan, which happens every week. And they haven't done it for weeks. And my thought, China right now is readying for war. China right now is prepping for war. It's been my thought for a while. This is why I said there's going to be some type of kinetic engagement between the U.S. and China. I think China is going to try to take Taiwan. And that's going to spark a lot of this.
And I think that's why they're halting the export of that stuff, because they know that they're going to have to pay market value now for oil when it comes out of Venezuela and Iran, which that changes how they're able to negotiate the stuff that they got. So they know they're getting choked out. Like Trump is doing phenomenal moves to position himself with, and I agree. I think it's going to be 2027. Maybe it happens towards the tail end of this year. We'll see. But this is one of the reasons, I think, to go back to the conversation we were having a little while ago with the SAVE Act. There's some weird stuff going on. Did Trump strategize this a certain way? People are not happy about Trump's endorsement of Cornyn, out of Texas. Everybody wants Paxton. But then you get Paxton that comes out and says, hey, Cornyn, as long as you commit to passing the SAVE Act, I'll concede the race to you. And so now does the establishment start saying, hey, wait, what's going on, Cornyn? You better not. Then Cornyn comes out and says, my priority will be passing the SAVE Act. So, this is throwing people off like, well, this doesn't make sense. Why? He's establishment. He can't support that. Now, my personal opinion is that the SAVE Act is not going to pass. And that's going to create, the court of public opinion that's going to support Trump when he ends up signing an executive order on how we're going to handle the elections. Now, does that happen prior to midterms to secure them, or does that happen post midterms because exposure comes out and this is how you remove them? But I think this is how you're going to see our elections are going to shift. Is it before or is it after? I'm 50-50 on that one, man. I just don't know.
Well, the baseline is it has to be public opinion. They can't. Nothing can be done by appearance of just force or brute measures. It has to be backed by the people. And one thing about China, as you guys were talking through this, there's also one dynamic that only Trump can probably think of, or probably the intelligence world. I caught this today. It came up. A guy named Amsgold reveals shocking text messages that Iranian soldiers are receiving on their phones from the U.S. military. Now, you guys heard this. Play it for the audience because the Chinese soldiers are going to get this too. Here's what he says. Sorry, I gotta get the volume up. It's played a little bit earlier, so I killed it. Here's what he's saying.
Iranian militias are getting the text messages straight to their phones. Your weapons are worthless against our airstrikes. Your commanders sold you out. They're hiding in luxury, pocketing the cash they stole, while you and your families get nothing but graves. Oh my God!
Imagine that. Imagine the demoralization that's happening instantly.
Why that works is they're very emotional. They keep the Muslims very emotional so that they can use them. So that's perfect to use that, because they're going to get very emotional about that, and they're not going to want to play anymore. So, wow.
He hacked their TVs, man. That was
Did you see that? He hacked their freaking TVs.
I didn't know. What happened?
Of course he did.
So the speech that he gave, they dubbed it over in Farsi, and then they hacked the Iranian TV network and played it for the Iranian people. Like I before coming on this show, I interviewed these two Iranian women. One of them, her name's Moni. She's the one that was doing the YMCA Trump dance that went viral. So I brought them on to do a recording, and they're talking about the Persian people are ecstatic for what Trump is doing. They're like, Americans need to understand the majority of Iran is not Muslim. Like
nobody knows that. That Alpha? Few people. I didn't even realize that, but the majority are Christians in Iran. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I think it's like 60% Christian.
Holy crap! That is an earthquake, man.
And by the way, I got to throw this out there. They treat Christians better in Iran than they do in Israel.
This is a whole subject we got to get on soon, Josh, because this is gonna look. You've got the religious right, the Christian right in the United States is headed for a sledgehammer to the skull on all of this shit.
Deservedly so.
Yep. I mean, honestly, we've all been programmed. But look, there's nothing more important, I don't think, in anybody's world or our lives in this country than this right here. That's why this thing is 49 years old. I've had this for 49 years. This is my original Bible.
Nice.
But at the end of the day, as I said, and I started challenging it 5 or 6 years ago, thinking I'd drive away all my Christian friends. And I still have wonderful Christian friends that think differently than I do, but we're still friends, you know. But right now, you got to realize that is an indoctrination, enslavement operation to do what they did to that Bible. You know, it's like they always mix in a lot of truth with a few lies, and those lies are a derailing system. So,
yeah, and Islam is just an extension of that. I mean,
Exactly.
Islam is just the next generation of that indoctrination and of that control mechanism. Whether it was Peter or Muhammad, I think they're both full of shit.
I'd like to go to church with you sometime. That'd be a great post church conversation. Have a cup of coffee or beers. I don't know which.
Yeah, let's go to church and let's get in a fight. Let's
Yeah.
kick some ass. Let's go.
Well, gentlemen, we're a little over the 2-hour mark. They say that the mind can absorb what the ass can endure, and mine only got half a cheek to work with here. So, honestly, I could go with you guys all night because I know the audience loves it too. It's a Friday night, you know, got 2,700 plus people on a Friday night hanging out with you guys. So, folks, we're going to continue now that we are in the true evolution of what we've been waiting for. We're going to continue doing maybe, you know, we get a bi-weekly or with these fellas. And if it's hot, we'll bring something out every week and say, okay, what's going on today? Because this is us getting to live our best history of our lives right here, right now. All of us, everybody watching, man, this is a battle for Earth and a battle for humanity, and we're winning big time. And it's just a lot of fun to watch how this thing's being fought. So thank you, gentlemen, for what you've done on the battlefield, what you've done on this battlefield, the spiritual battlefield information. You guys you've delivered a massive service, not just to the nation, but the whole world. A lot of people are focused on how you guys see things because you've been at this one respect or another, militarily specifically, for a very long time. So it's a pleasure to always have you guys here, and we all get to learn from you guys. So thanks much, and mad love for you for all you guys from the audience out there. They're on it all the time. They love watching you guys together. So thanks for coming on tonight.
100%. America
Appreciate
wins.
you guys.
Baby.
Yeah, America wins. We all win. Humanity wins. So we'll call that, folks, tonight a wrap. And on behalf of the Warriors here, Tomahawk, myself, we will say Patriot Street Fighter out.